All right, it is 5:31. We do have a quorum. The only absence we have is Nicole Taylor. She is not here tonight. Does anyone have any additions or adjustments to the agenda?
Okay.
Okay, then we'll move on to approve the minutes of July 17th, 2025.
So moved.
Second.
It's going to be Melvin and Rachel. Anyone have any questions, comments on the minutes? All right, all in favor? Opposed and abstentions? 4-0.
Okay, do you have an agenda for me?
They're on the table over there.
The old lady can go get it for you.
That's on
What old lady?
I'm just.
You ain't get old yet.
I'm harassing Josh. I haven't seen him in a couple of months.
Lincoln told me there's no such thing as getting old.
No.
All right.
It's only for a short period of time.
Next is audience with the public. Is there anyone wants to say anything? Anya? No? Nothing?
Aren't you funny?
Come on. I'm sure there's got something to say.
Oh, I did, but I'll talk to you later.
There are no action items for tonight, so we'll get right into other items. That's where I hand it off to you, Brian.
Awesome. All right. So as we're kind of drilling down into getting the start of the school year, it's been a busy summer. I just wanted to kind of go over the projects that we have done throughout the summer and then give you a status on kind of where we stand personnel wise, all of that kind of stuff. And so that front page of this handout, entitled Facilities Transportation Information Paper, for summer projects. It's again been a busy year. Got a lot of stuff done. The septic system at Potomac Valley High School, they'll be cutting that over to the new system Monday. So that's awesome. And along with the library, we did some paving on the front entrance, and we'll be gearing up to get started on the biomass boiler, doing the dirt work and cement work this fall. Probably get the building built, and then we'll be ready to execute that for a year, 10 months from now. Potomac Middle School, so there was no major projects at the middle school, but I do have that planning for the water treatment system. Just before or just after school ended, we had a problem with the water treatment system. Upon further review, it's probably nearing end of life with some of the parts. Can't get replacement parts for the equipment they have there. For those of you who were with us back when the water, not the water treatment, but the computer that drove basically the whole system failed when we were out of school for a while. Those two are kind of synchronized. And so this is a bigger project than just going in and swapping out a couple of softener systems or something like that, because they do have to synchronize. So we're working on that. I don't have the number yet, but just wanted to give you all a heads up that is coming. And the school prep for the 6th graders, that was every classroom except for 2, I believe, changed. So the staff, the custodians there, they work their asses off this summer.
When he says changed, he means every item in every classroom got moved. They moved everything in that school. Like what those custodians pulled off this summer was incredible.
Nathan.
I have a question, Brian.
Yes.
With the water treatment, is that up to bid or do we have a contract with somebody?
So it's not a contract that we have with anybody, but there are only a certain number of companies that actually do that kind of stuff that then also service it. We have historically used Air and Water Quality out of Freeport. They're one of the big names in the state. They'll handle that side. On the the boiler room side of the computers and all the drives and pumps and all that kind of stuff, that would be a whole separate company. The guy who I'd like to have is Haggerty was his last name. He was the one who finally got us up and running. Let's go with the middle school. He He's nationally known. Literally, he'd just come back from Colorado, getting a school back up and running. When I called him, he just landed when I finally got his name. So those would be my, dream team to do it. But we will certainly, obviously, follow the policy as that comes down the line.
And Jim, just so you know, when it went down last time, we couldn't replace it. We needed to get children back in school. So we had to rework, I guess, what was there, and it was proprietary. So that's why that gentleman was one of the only ones in the world that said, well, if we made too many changes, we'd had to go all the way back through all the permitting and everything. So
That's right.
that's how come we had to wait for that gentleman to fly back from Colorado. School was closed for a couple of weeks, as I recall. Well, not closed, the building was closed. The children went to school somewhere else,
Downtown Walterboro at the something building.
This is good for the public to know, though, that it's not a clean, just fix it. There's complications with permitting and grandfathering and all these issues that this is a perfect example of something that seems like a simple question, but there isn't a simple answer. So thanks. It's good for the public to hear these conversations.
Does it seem like moving forward when you were saying it's like proprietary, right?
It was, but what he's talking about is replacing.
Okay, so then we won't have to run into those things again.
That's correct.
with that
There
team.
was a backstory on that, and the best that we could tell, so the company that pretty much built that whole system along with the cooling systems at the middle school were out of Canada and have long since closed their shop. And they figured that probably whoever was building the place, somebody gave them a great deal and said, this is the system you need. And there's a lot more to it than what it needs to be.
Okay.
When you go into the middle school and you look at the water treatment in the pump from where it comes into the pumps, now there's a little bit of a difference because it's also a fire suppression system. So that computer also integrates the regular water through the treatment system, but also has to be able to actuate valves in the event of fire alarm, we need to engage the fire suppression system.
Mhm.
And that was actually one of the biggest pieces, was this command module was getting it to interface with the valve that forced all the water into the fire suppression side of the school.
Scary.
So Miller School, Julia has been extremely flexible with me this summer because there's been a lot of stuff going on, and it has certainly impacted their summer prep. And I want to thank her for that, but we did back 4 classrooms on the back of the building towards the playground were extremely cold. Insulation was bad, so we re-insulated those rooms. We did some paving. We did valves and controls for the heating system, they just finished up today, which is ahead of schedule, which is awesome. Some exterior painting and then the drop ceiling on the stage. So we saw some pretty good improvements at Miller. And that valves and controls is one that I'm particularly looking forward to because that should give a lot more standardized heat throughout the school, which was a big problem. We see temperature variations of 10, 12 degrees in between. Julia's office that was frequently 80+ degrees, and then other classrooms that were, down in the low 60s. So might have been a big swing for that. But that's just not good either, because you get rooms that hot, then what to do when it's there? Opening windows, understandably, to try to cool it down, but that's obviously not the approach we'd like to do. We'd like to get the ventilation through the air handlers and not from having to open windows, especially in the wintertime. Warren Community School, so we finished up the field improvements on that lower field. That was a challenge because didn't have good drainage. There were low points right off the lowest point was just off the playground, the paved playground. So you had to go down through the wettest area to get to some of the better areas. So we've got that's gonna be good to go. We put in some subgrade drainage with some crushed stone, much like we did in the front field at Madomic Valley High School. And we also raised that corner up that was closest to the school, brought that up a little bit to additionally help with water drainage. And so looking forward to that. We had done some paving earlier in the year, right, basically right at the end of the school year that we did there. And the final thing was the playground. Oh, excuse me, not the last thing, but the playground. We're gonna be upgrading that here, it looks like probably the end of September. As you remember, you voted on accepting a grant from the ACE program to help, that's paying off about half of that. So that was a big piece. And then we've still got some exterior lighting that we'll be finishing up before, you know, things start getting dark real early. Just helping out with, it's a safety, security aspect. The front of the building in particular is quite dark. At Union, so the big one here that we did was the windows replacement. And then we finished up the lion's share of all of the wiring and controls for the school. So doing in pretty good shape here as well. Prescott, the big one there was the paving project that we completed. We also added a drop ceiling into in the process of adding a drop ceiling into one of the classrooms that had an air handler that rendered that classroom not unusable, but not as usable as what we'd like it to be because of the noise that was being generated by the air handler. So we're hoping we put a drop ceiling in between the air handler and the kids. And that's gonna help with the noise control quite a bit. And we're gonna be doing some exterior lighting there. And then the last piece is a generator. Some of you may remember that about a year ago, there was the school district in Northport was selling their generator, and the principal is a friend of my wife's, and so he gave me a call and said he was interested in this, and the price was too good to be true. It was $6,500 for a 40 kilowatt generator with the control module and the whole 9 yards. So just the control module was well worth that. So we're gonna get that installed at Prescott. And then down at Friendship is the exterior painting was a big part of that. That would just be on the front wall of the building all the way across. And we'll also be doing some exterior lighting as well on that. And for anybody who does not, if you are on Facebook, I've been posting kind of updates on stuff on Get Informed RSU 40. So if you're ever wondering what things look like or something like that, you can go on there and check things out. As far as our staffing status, our biggest problem right now is Potomac Valley High School. We have a head custodian, one night custodian. So we're down 3 people, 3 night custodians, which is going to be a big hit. We were able to cover that with maintenance personnel this summer for cleaning. Of course, there's a trade-off there as well, because then we're not doing some of the outside stuff that we would normally do. But all in all, I think that we got quite a bit of stuff accomplished. And the high school is great. The middle school is, we've got all 3 of 3. Miller is also 3 of 3 head custodian, 2 night custodians. But as a reminder, the head custodian, Dave St. Peter, is also the Friendship bus driver. So we backfill him in the mornings with one of our maintenance guys until he gets done his elementary run. And again, that's appreciate Julia for, being flexible on that. So, because she never really knows who she's going to arrive at the school to be looking at, or which one of the maintenance guys. Warren Community School, we're 3 of 3. We had actually I received a resignation from one of the night custodians about a week ago. And today, that individual came up and asked if she could retract that resignation, which I accepted. So we're back to being fully booked on that. A note on Warren Community School, the new head custodian, we had lost that position, or lost the individual at the end of the school year. AJ, who is on our maintenance crew, will be moving over, is doing a lateral move, and he's going to become the head custodian, which is good for that, but then that I'm going to be short a person on the maintenance side. So it's a trade-off.
He was helping out at Prescott quite a bit, obviously, in our in-between, and he's awesome.
Yeah.
Just, he's done such a good job over there, so we're
Absolutely.
lucky to have him.
So Union Elementary School, Dean is, still continues to be here. At Prescott, our current, custodian, Sarah, it will be leaving somewhere between the end of September and October. We have identified, her replacement. We met, Crystal Bushy and I met with him yesterday, and she was happy, and so it appears that we've got that covered. Again, lateral moves being in effect, he was, a van driver last year, he was training up to be a bus driver. I'm sad to see a bus driver losing a bus driver potentially, but there is an upside to that too, that you've got a guy in Washington with a bus license that can help out in events that people in effect become a sub driver in Washington for events that where we lose a driver or something. So I think that's promising. Friendship, Diana is still there, and maintenance, as I mentioned previously, we've got 2 out of 3 after AJ has departed. For transportation, just kind of a quick update. So Bus Right, as you all recall, we have migrated to a different fleet management software called Bus Right. And we made that transition because the previous software we were using was fully paid for by the state of Maine, and that ended at the end of this past year. So we went out, Bus Right was the obvious choice. And that was from other facilities director, Maggie Massengale at Camden, and some other things. So we're bringing that online now. Sarah Davis, who's in the crowd here, she's been kind of is the one who's really getting smart on Bus Right. And she has populated, we built out all but one of the routes. And it's kind of a 2-step, and correct me when I'm wrong here, Sarah. It's a 2-step process. You build the routes out, and then you bring in the data in from IC, and that populates the addresses and everything that you've got on the routes with the actual names and addresses of the students. All right, there we go. So I talked a little bit about that eventually we'll have the ability to consolidate runs in the absence of a bus driver. We will be able to do that, but that is not going to be something that's going to be active, probably for at least another month and a half or so. I want to get the driver smart on it before we start doing that. Yes, ma'am.
So parents will have like your bus is 5 minutes away notification or whatever. Is it like an app that parents are gonna download, and then all that information is gonna be available to all the parents during registration and beginning of the year?
So that app is also something I want to get our bus drivers used to it, so we probably won't put that out at the very beginning of the year,
Okay.
but probably shortly thereafter.
Okay.
I am actually going to be putting out a Parent Square message here in the next day or two, just saying, hey, folks, we've got a new software platform, and give them, perhaps add a link in, because there is, if you look it up online or on YouTube, there are all kinds of links of what it looks like from the parent's perspective and how it goes. You can't see other kids drop stops. It's only giving you data on your student. So there's no threats as far as from a safety standpoint of somebody who's not supposed to have that data being able to get it.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
For staffing, as you can see, we're not doing too awful bad. We're 4 out of 5 bus drivers in Waldoboro. We do have a candidate who will be going for her bus license next Friday. So that makes it a little bit difficult to put out guidance to parents, because it could be a 4-bus run if there are troubles on Friday, or it could be a 5-bus run if it's successful. So that's another message that I want to just put up, that we'll be putting out on Parent Square, just to keep everybody informed. But we're obviously keen to get that 5th bus run in Waldoboro as soon as possible. In Warren, it's 4 out of 5 right now. We do not have, there is no foreseeable solution to that at this point, but I have had conversations with licensed bus drivers here. And so I'm hoping that we'll be able to pick somebody up on that. Union will be 2 of 2, and that includes one of our new drivers that went through our internal bus driver training program. And Washington, 2 of 2, Friendship, 1 of 1. Again, as a reminder, the Friendship is actually a sub-driver. It's David St. Peter, who was the head custodian at Miller School. Our small buses we are fully manned of a driver and aide in both of our 2 small buses. And our vans, we've got 8 of 9 drivers right now, and that was because of the individual who's moving to Prescott. But we had some candidates, and I expect that we'll be able to have that for, if not for the first day of school, shortly thereafter. And bus route publication, this becomes a hot button topic this time of year. Just as a reminder, there is a policy in place for RSU 40, it's the 31st of August. And so we're gonna meet that. Obviously, right now, it's a little clumsy because we are trying to get our arms wrapped around bus riding. And so we're trying to give out as accurate information as possible. But we were on task. That will be released before the 31st of August, that's for sure. We are gonna do some training this year, before the school year. That'll happen next Thursday, right here in the central office. We've got Carl Anderson, who's lieutenant of the Rockland Fire Department, who is car and booster seat trained. And so he's gonna come in and give us some training on that, best ways to hook them up, inspections of them, that sort of thing, and also update us on the newest laws as far as heights, weights of kids and who belongs in what, and as far as best practices stuff, to make sure that we're doing the best we can on that end. We will be doing some seizure and diabetic emergency protocols. You know, one of the things that people don't realize is that you have a bus driver if they have a student that requires that training, but if that student is also does a sports trip or does a field trip, that bus driver potentially is a trip. Now theoretically, there'll be teachers on board that will be able to handle that, but I think it's important that we've got some of those protocols and we understand the process as well. And then we've got the yearly required training that comes down through Vector Solutions that we handle as a group. And then we'll probably have a barbecue or a pizza party or something like that here next Thursday. Final piece is so for the discussion points that were actually on the agenda. The district capital improvements, I covered those earlier today. So the high school assessment, you have directed me to take a look at what it would look like, a bond centric to the Potomac Valley High School to get that up to snuff. As a reminder, we have the most recent, Maine State Capital Construction Priority List was released, and we continue to be a long, long way away from ever seeing a new high school. We first submitted the high school in 2010. We ended up, I believe, 64 on the list, boss.
64.
In 2017, we dropped to 54, and then this year we only got to 52. So we're a long way. We went down and went to Augusta and met with the evaluation team, and they basically looked us in the eye and said, "You're not close. There are schools that are just that much worse, in particularly high schools." So I think that we are legitimately looking at 30 years probably before we're gonna get to high school. Unless something dramatic happens, a huge infusion of funding.
The 9 that were selected, actually, we don't know how many were
That
selected,
has been approved.
have been approved, but of the top 9, 3 of them had their schools bumped out. So obviously they got bumped to the top. They weren't on the list before. So, yeah, you know, new schools could show up, I guess is my point. The list, 2017 was only like 70 schools, and this
Yes.
one was 95 or 100, so more and more schools get added to the list every year. So there were some factors that worked against us. They said the size of our classrooms, they were adequate, the classroom sizes are adequate. Our building is brick, not wood. There's like criteria that they go through, and some of them work against it.
So we're gonna have to take a look at high school. make some upgrades, the required upgrades to make sure that we've got a good facility there. And so I'm working through that right now with Energy Efficiency Investments, who we've been partnering with through all of these recent upgrades, as well as Novo Studio Architects. Anna Ketterer is out of Owl's Head. And I spent, was it last Friday or the Friday before that, Sarah, this past one? With her, we did about 3 hours or so at the high school, wandering through and taking a look at projects and priorities. She's gonna be meeting with Linda Pease here at some point in the near future to get the perspective from the education side perspective, which obviously Linda is far better equipped to provide than I am. And so we're plugging away at it. I don't know how quickly that we will have anything that is a solid, but I'm assuming probably, in winter, we'd have a little bit better, at least a 75%, 80% solution of what a cost would look like, or at least some options and what the affiliated cost would be.
Are these people coming to you, Brian, with like, prioritizing what is in the worst dire straits and then working our way down?
That is correct.
Yeah, okay.
And that's kind of how we've been doing all of our capital construction stuff. We've been going on here. I mean, we've mixed in some other things. There was, but yes, that was identified, our priority list from when we did the $80 million bond here a few years ago. And that continues to be updated. And it gets updated almost as soon as something breaks, that can immediately go from, like 15 on the list and all of a sudden it becomes 2 on the list. Like the water treatment system, for instance, at the Dominic Middle School that I spoke about earlier. But we're gonna try to get as close to right as for what it's gonna be. I will tell you, the board is gonna have to make some tough decisions. There's a lot of asbestos tile at the Dominic Valley High School. If we choose to abate that and replace it, that is gonna be a huge cost. And they're obviously, the best solution would be to get rid of it. That's what everybody wants, but, you're probably talking by the time that you abate the existing asbestos tile, and put in new tile, that might be $8-10 million, just that alone. So, you can do a lot of other projects if we just continue to put, keep wax on asbestos, because asbestos isn't a threat as long as it's encased. So we're looking at all those things, and so that we can come to you with a recommendation of what we think as close as can be, right, looks like, and then some courses of actions within that we can do. So we continue to work on that. Bus slips, we are looking at probably making some adjustments to the current bus slips to better meet the needs of administrators and bus drivers and kind of everybody involved. And just for an update, they're a little antiquated. And so Sarah is yet another thing on her plate, is working with a couple of the bus drivers and some of the administrators in working through to come up with something that, is usable and for all involved.
Does it seem like that once those come into action, that'll be something that we'll need to look at our policies for those to make sure that those are cohesive as well?
So the bus slips are approved by the board. The previous ones that we use, those are the approved mechanism for doing that. The current bus slips actually have suggested punishments for first offense, second offense, third offense. I think that my personal opinion is I would prefer to do away with that, because there are some offenses that are first offense that shouldn't have to take 3 offenses to get to the point where something more serious or more severe is happening. And there are other things that, 3 offenses might not mean, to a hill of beans. A kid has a piece of bubble gum and drops the wrapper on the floor, or, if he does that 3 times, that's not something that I'm interested necessarily in punishing him for. So, at the end of the day, we want to try to find something that's fair, that gives the bus drivers a voice, gives administrators good information to work with, and also gives good information for the parents to work with as well.
So it would be discretionary?
We're still working through it. I'm not sure, I think that I don't know about discretionary, but I think there has to be some flexibility built in. But an understanding as well, and so I don't know what that's gonna look like just yet, but, the current one that we've got is clunky. Because it does force some people into things that they don't wanna do, and frankly, as it's being used right now, there's a lot of times that there's no punishment being done when it should be done, and, so I just wanna, we gotta take a look at the entire sphere, because there's no question, students, they're best if they're in school. Obviously, not riding a bus doesn't mean they're not gonna get to school, but there are gonna be some that, without a bus ride, they're not gonna get there. And a lot of kids, that's where they're gonna be best served, where they, have some structure, and they're gonna get some meals and, all of that and they'll be safe. So we wanna measure all of those and weigh all, make sure that everything's a balance as best we can. But I also wanna make sure that we're taking care of our bus drivers and that they're having a voice when unsafe conduct is taking place in the buses that we're acting on.
And correct me if I'm wrong with the procedures, once you guys come up with something, we'll review it, send it to the policy committee, and then it will go to the full board, correct? Okay.
I think, like to Brian's point, and Julia obviously does this for a living, not me, but a kid smoking a cigarette, it shouldn't take 3 times before they get kicked off the bus. I know nobody smokes cigarettes anymore, but that, but that's why I think what Brian's getting at. Some things should be an immediate thing. Other things, yeah, maybe it takes 3 times before you get kicked off the bus. Right now, we're not being very consistent, which I think if you're not consistent, then children don't tend to take it serious.
Karen's reliving her own bus rides in high school.
My driver would just open the door and say, here you go.
Probably,
Walk
Yeah,
from here.
maybe we need to
We don't do
take
that.
this responsibility away from administrators and principals and let the bus driver take care of his own bus.
We're gonna let Brian and Sarah figure that out.
Yeah.
We'll come back to you with a recommendation, I promise.
Back to the consistency.
I mean,
Well, there never was any consistency when the bus drivers handled it. One bus driver, anything went, next bus driver, nothing went.
That was the bus driver I had.
And Tim, that was good for you.
Yeah.
Oh, I know. Dear God,
Me
it's
too.
all about-
the final piece, revolving renovation loan. So revolving renovation loan is a different animal than the capital construction. Revolving renovation comes out, it was out last year and it's coming out again this year, but the year before that, it was not out. And so it varies in how often it's released. And it's also varies in how much money is in that pot of money that DOE is putting out there. For those of you who have not heard my spiel on on the revolving renovation loan, you are allowed up to $2 million per school. So potentially we could have a $14 million loan. Each year or each time it's released, there is a different criteria. Last year, it was about physical security was the primary criteria they used. This year, they're getting back into the typical air quality, hygiene, that type of stuff. We are working with EEI and also the architect. We will be submitting for the revolving renovation. There's typically not a huge amount of money in this thing. You're talking, sometimes it's like $6 million, so there's not a lot of stuff getting funded. This past year, it was about double that, maybe even triple
That
that.
was 20 million last
Yeah,
year for the
okay.
whole state.
Yeah, for the whole state, so it's competitive. It is
And we got
absolutely
0.
competitive. But if we can get it, you automatically you only have to pay half back. And then on top of that, you can get additional reductions as you go. So it's absolutely worth the time to submit for it. There's no question about that.
Is this from state or federal DOE?
State.
State, okay.
I don't know if they get their funding from the feds, but it's
comes from the
It
state.
comes from the state, yes, correct.
Brian, do you know if there's a limit per school district? I know there's a limit per school. I don't recall if there's one per school.
I don't recall if it was 2 and 4. 2 and 4 comes to
Or
mind,
2 and 8, maybe?
maybe 2 and 8, it could be, yeah.
$8 million cap for the district.
That's what I was thinking. It's a cap per, there's a cap per building, but then there's also a cap per district.
And that's just in the application
Yeah.
itself.
I want to say that it was 20 million last year and one district got a bulk of it, but I can't remember what that district's particular
2
issue.
years ago, Rockland, or 3 years ago, Rockland got the whole, like,
Rockland
it
did.
was $6 million, Rockland got all of it, it was kind of wild. But, so we're working on that. So again, we are investigating any and all means, any avenue where we can potentially get some money to help out to do improvements to the schools. We're investigating them and we're trying to capitalize on them.
Do you already have a couple schools in mind that you would be applying for if there is an $8 million cap?
We'd certainly be submitting the high school. We've got some pretty big, we've got ventilation problems. We also have asbestos. As I mentioned before, the specific asbestos that we'd be targeting at the high school is most of the ventilation is wrapped, insulated in asbestos insulation. So we'd be looking to remediate that piece because that is a safety or a health issue. Because that's when asbestos, when it's, you know, when it's a dust and it's in the air, that's when the problems come. So that'll be our target there. Certainly Friendship Village School, we got ventilation that we're looking to do. Downstairs Union Elementary School, there's still some ventilation to do. So it'll be ventilation centric. And frankly, that's kind of the next step for next summer beyond the biomass boiler. Any additional projects that we do would be a ventilation centric, not, you know, the Madomic Valley High School piece, you know, withstanding, because that's would be a separate thing. If any questions, last piece is, we had a reporter from Lincoln County News who came in the district here a couple of weeks ago, and there is an article out in the Lincoln County News, and Noah and Leah Chips were both involved in that at Miller School, but it gave us a chance to walk around with Molly Raines and show her. She was able to speak with Julie Levenseller and a couple of the board members. The only error that she made in that is she misrepresented the capital construction list as the revolving renovation, is what she called it in one section of the article, but that's understandable. You start dealing with that many different pots of money, it's an understandable error.
Anyone have any questions or comments for Brian?
I have another one. Going back to the staffing, having 2 out of 5 for Madomic Valley, are there any applications in the works right now?
No.
Or is that gonna get covered, that shortage? Are we juggling people?
Um,
Juggling people around?
That's exactly what we do. Paul Huber from here at the central office who does this will likely be shifted down to the high school for a significant amount of the time. Larry Jensen from the maintenance staff will probably end his day the last couple hours at the high school. And I'm looking at the potential for one of the custodians from the middle school, shifting him over to the high school right across the campus for hours at a time, you know, a couple nights a week. So we'll continue to, you know, apply pressure on communication with the Ps as far as things that the teachers can do to help out. So we can maximize the custodian's time, but unfortunately, I did some investigation into the possibility of hiring a, you know, private cleaning company, commercial cleaning company, and the pricing unfortunately it's, for two people, each week would be about $5,000 a week. And, my budget would get thin pretty fast at that rate. So we're gonna continue to work. We've been bumping up our advertisements, going out in the newspapers and that sort of thing. It's not easy to fill these spots, but we're gonna continue to work with it. And the administrators and the teachers, they're good. They work with us and they help out often. At all the schools, they're willing to help out for the most part, some more so than others. But we'll get through. Fortunately, it's the beginning of the year, so, everything's starting off completely fresh. So that gives us a little bit of a leg up on it, but we will, and if we had to be short at a school on the custodian, the high school would be my choice. Only you've got older kids, hopefully there's not, all kinds of the challenges in the boys' bathrooms that you sometimes get in the lower grades and some of the other stuff. The kids, you're hoping that they'll be a little neater and pick up after themselves, and that will help out the custodial staff.
I've got actually one more question. Prescott's got the generator going in. Is that the last school? Do all the rest of the schools have generators?
No, the only two schools in the district currently with generators are Union Elementary Central Office and Warren Community Schools.
Okay.
And those were paid for because they are Red Cross shelters, emergency shelters.
Okay.
And so those were paid for at least partially as part of that program.
Okay. I asked because, well, you experienced this, but Washington lost power, as did a couple of other places. I think you guys kept it in Union the other day for overnight, and I don't know if the chatter obviously is that like there's now so many heat pumps and air conditioners and so many people on, we blew a transformer, and it took a long time for it to come back up, and it's still hot in September, and there's a lot of people, and just thinking about if there's strain, more and more strain on the systems, and if that's gonna be a, concern for the other schools having generators put in.
I would love to have a generator at the high school.
Yeah.
Obviously, in addition to being, the high school, it also houses, for instance, all the servers.
Yeah.
A lot of that in there, and so, the network is run, at least for a lot of the schools, and you correct me if I'm saying that incorrectly.
It is a hub for a lot of things.
Yes, so, but the problem is we priced that out, and just the control mechanism, the controller for that, the switch, was about $250,000, and that was during COVID, because we were looking at doing it. So that was just for the switch. That didn't even include the generator itself. So it's
How big a generator will a high school need?
probably 100 kilowatt.
Is that just for the high school or for the?
That would be the high school only, yeah. Yeah,
I have a question.
yes, ma'am.
Has, and maybe this isn't viable legally, but at Madomic, could some of the kids do a work-study program and help with the custodian? Is it work-study?
So,
Some simple custodians.
yeah, I know there is a mechanism to do that because Augusta School District, for instance, does that as well. When we have investigated that in the past, we have had very little interest in it from the student body. And I can think of a number of reasons for that. Of course, but there's not much interest in it for the most part. But it's certainly, I was in an RZR the other day, and there was I'm assuming it was a student at the high school who was in there. Well, he made the comment, I just hope that we can leave the stuff alone, spend money on stuff that needs to be fixed. So even the students can see that it's happening. And so hopefully we'll start getting some students coming forward a little more often, and so we can identify the students that are, that are doing things incorrectly and, taking corrective action on those. Because it is a lot. I mean, last year it was $60,000 I spent on vandalism to the plumbing alone at Madomic Valley High School. That's real money. That's real big money right there.
And like, what are they doing? They flushing things down the toilet, plugging drains, or?
flushing vapes, flushing, completely innocent thing. They had some stress balls, squeeze balls for the kids that they passed out. Well, guess what happened to all the stress balls? Caused me a lot of stress. They got flushed down the toilets.
Small enough.
And we've got, so that's a big part. Usually anytime the vape is flushed down, that is a huge problem. Oftentimes resulting in replacing the toilet, the whole 9 yards.
Really?
Yeah.
One thing last year was they took the plumbing off the bottom of the sink, but then put it back on. So when the water ran, the thing fell off and flooded the bathroom. Problem is, then you shut down that bathroom and you have students that have to go halfway around the building now to use a different bathroom, which then leads to other behavioral issues because children are wandering much further away from their classroom and they're missing class time. So just.
And the only way that there's any recourse is word of mouth if somebody.
Yeah, we can't have adults in, monitoring inside the bathrooms. Obviously cameras, we're not gonna put in the bathrooms. It makes it difficult. They're tearing, the stalls, they're ripping the walls off and tearing the doors off and, the urinals.
They hang off the frames.
So, I mean, it's severe. The problem is, I'm guessing it's probably only a handful of kids that's responsible for the lion's share of the damage. So we're hoping that, as we apply more and more focus on this and draw attention to it, that, kids will start coming forward and identifying who's doing it. But
Given any consideration, like when there's freshman orientation at the high school, just making mention of this and being respectful of the behaviors and kind of hitting them with what the price tag was for what's going on at the school.
So I've spoken, I know that Linda Pease, they go over the, behavior expectations in the school and go through that. And she certainly, Linda is aware of the cost that has gone along with this. So I will certainly sit down. I'm sure that Linda will be doing it on her own, but I will certainly mention it to her as well.
Yeah. Well, I just know, from my personal experience being in high school, at that age, you don't really comprehend,
Yeah.
the ramifications of your actions. And sometimes if it's spelled out, black and white.
I don't know if anybody's hired a plumber or electrician lately, but it gets real, pretty quickly when you start dealing with that. So,
Especially when you get into emergency rates because something is leaking.
but
Yeah.
or, and then interstate septic, we probably called out interstate septic to do augering of pipes because of stuff lodged in the system.
Maybe a
Probably-
finance committee thing, but we need to look into buying stock in interstate.
Probably a dozen times or more, maybe
Maybe you are
12 to 15 times last year that we had them called out to the high school for augering. So,
And the
I
vapes
didn't
don't
mean
even belong in the school.
I'm
Some
sorry.
of these vapes don't even belong in the school.
Now, remember, we're not ending on a sour note.
Yeah.
Please pick this paper back up and look at the first 2 pages. There's been a lot done. There's a lot still to do. But Brian, thank you. Seriously, you and your entire team. It was nice getting to see them today down at the barbecue you guys put on. We have an amazing facilities team that, they may be small in number, but you wouldn't believe the amount of stuff that they get done. They hold this district together, so they deserve a lot more thanks than we give them. So, thank you from all of us.
Yeah, definitely.
No one has anything else. It is 6:20. We are adjourned.
Should we send it up, right?
Yeah. And then.
Just one back.
I mean, how many of those? Like, why? Why? Like, we did dumb stuff.
Yeah.